A warm good evening to all our participants and esteemed guests for the evening today. It's another terrific and prolific scientific session for the Oral Cancer E-Conclave. We're on day 3. In the last 2 sessions, we covered numerous topics on the early diagnosis and the prognosis behind the disease and how well we can, with a very scientific and terrific panel discussion with Dr. Anil D. Cruz. Today, again, we are here to have a wonderful discussion on the locally advanced oral cancers, and this is the theme for today's session. And we're going to have a lot of discussions and a lot of learnings from our extraordinary oncosurgeons who have joined us from across the country. I thank all the participating organizations and the representatives who are here with us today and have made the event really successful so far. And I hope that all of us are going to really enjoy and learn a lot of things from our panelists. With this now, without taking much time, I'll invite Dr. Vikram Kekatpuri sir. He's Secretary of Foundation for Head and Neck Oncology, and he's also currently Senior Consultant, Director of Head and Neck Oncology, and Director of Tissue Repository Program at Cytocare Cancer Hospital, Bangalore. I invite sir to take the scientific sessions ahead.
Thank you. Welcome all to the day 3 of this conclave. It has been really very exciting 2 days, and I'm sure the third day is going to be even more exciting, mainly because it deals with the advanced cancers, which forms bulk of our disease, which we commonly see in our practice. And we have a very great lineup of faculty today, and we hope that it will generate a lot of excitement and discussion. Now, moving ahead, it is time for the panel discussion. And we, after listening to the surgeon and the medical oncologist perspective, it's time to take up few questions and then finalize what is the standard of care for such locally advanced oral cavity cancers. So let me invite our moderator for the panel discussion, Dr. Pooja Nandwani Patel, who is a senior consultant and head radiation oncology at Sterling Cancer Hospital. Over to you, Dr. Pooja.
Well, before we hand over to Pooja ma'am, I'll just take this opportunity on behalf of ICANCARE to announce the scholarship program. We are very happy to announce that ICANCARE is offering 100 seats as scholarship for the tobacco cessation, intermediate level tobacco cessation certificate program. This is accredited by Gujarat University, and the next batch starts from 1st of May. This is going to be four sessions program, 8 hours of talk over Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m. There's a WhatsApp number which is given on the screen, so I'll invite all the participants who are here with us and on different social media platform who are watching us live on the show. Please do enroll and register yourself. This is a very structured program, a lot of scientific validation done by the university, by the medical fraternity, with a lot of infusement and coupled up with technology about the recent methodologies and processes about session. I do invite everyone to please do join in, and interested members simply number, and then we'll take the enrollment ahead. Thank you so much. And now I invite ahead.
Good evening, one and all. And after hearing the surgeon's perspective, medical oncologist perspective, I would have a interesting case discussion. You know, we have 3-4 interesting cases, and I'll see how the panels with me today, or even the audience, we have questions for poll to the audience as well, and we'll see that how these cases have been taken up if they are presenting in your daily practice. So, without wasting much time, I'll start with the cases directly. Is my slide full screen?
No, now we cannot see.
Can we have the names of the panelists here?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, by the time I'm opening, anybody can announce. I think the chairperson can do that. Yeah, is my slide visible first?
Yes, ma'am, now it's visible.
Okay, fine. So I invite my esteemed panelists with me today, and I have a huge list which includes all on board from the surgical, medical, radiation, radiology, all the departments. So I invite first of all from the surgeons, Dr. Natwar Gupta, Dr. Prashant Wanzar, Dr. Rohit Nair, Dr. Vipin Bhartwal as a plastic surgeon with me today. From the medical oncology, we have Dr. Aditi Thanki, Dr. Jay Dadania. In the radiation oncology, we have Dr. Sumit Agarwal, Dr. Ketan Kalaria was busy in some COVID duty. So it's very kind of Dr. Ritu Chandra to join at the last moment with us. From the radiology, we have Dr. Deepal Shah. So I think we have a good attendance today from the faculties, and of course we'll have involvement of the audience as well. So we all know that head and neck squamous cell carcinoma is always a multidisciplinary team approach. So we have this all on board with us, and we also understand there's a lot of importance of speech and swallowing therapy rehabilitation. That is why probably the next Sunday would concentrate the topics on this. So not wasting time, straightforward going to the first case. He's a 45-year-old young gentleman who has no history of any tobacco or alcohol addiction. He's a very fit patient, no comorbidities, and presented with difficulty in swallowing food since 6 months and a visible growth on the right side of the tongue since 3 months. A simple ideal examination showed a growth in the right side of the oral tongue extending to base tongue and vallecula. We have this MR picture, and I would request our radiologist, Dr. Deepal Bhai, to please read out the images for us. Dr. Deepal Bhai.
Yeah, these are the axial fat suppressed titubated images and axial titubated images. They show large star hyperetus lesion involving posterior part of oral tongue on the right side, extending into right side base of tongue. The lesion involves genioglossus and hyoglossus muscles on the same side and inferiorly extends into sublingual space. Lesion crosses midline to reach on the left side. Posteriorly, lesion extends into right lateral oropharyngeal wall and involves pharyngeal constrictor muscle and extending into right parapharyngeal space. Laterally, the lesion is abutting submandibular gland.
So, Deepal Bhai, is it possible for you as a radiologist to just guess the epicenter of this disease, whether it's a oral tongue going to base tongue or a base tongue going to an oral tongue?
When tumor is very large, many times it is difficult. But if you see the epicenter of the disease, it appears to be situated in the posterior part of the oral tongue.
Okay. So very rightly said, it's a big lesion, around 5 centimeter lesion, which is there in the posterior half of the tongue, involving the lateral border, oral surface, undersurface of the tongue with involvement of the intrinsic muscles. It's around 5 centimeter lesion, which is also going to the right side of the genohyoid muscle, and it is also involving posterior lateral, is involving the lateral oropharyngeal wall, tonsillar fossa, with the infiltration of mesenteric space. So probably it becomes a clinically T4 stage for us. Cranially, it is also involving around the oropharyngeal wall with suspicious involvement of the posterior margin of soft palate. And inferiorly, if you see, it's going to the right-sided suprahyoid pre-epiglottic face with a well-preserved infra-fed space. So, Deepal Bhai, again to you, how frequently you are... how frequently are you reporting the depth of invasion on your images?
We are reporting depth of invasion in every cases.
So, and have you ever then correlated after the surgery has been done? How far is the correlation with the histopathological report?
It's fairly correlating with the histopathology, and there are many published articles also regarding the correlation between the radiological depth of invasion and pathological depth of invasion. And the discrepancy is usually between 0.5 millimeter to 2 to 3 millimeter.
So it's a very good practice if we have a good radiology team with us who is giving the depth of invasion. So it becomes a lot of the times a very good analysis by the clinicians how to proceed further. There, of course, I understand there will be a lot of controversy because I heard Dr. Nirav Trivedi first. For him, I think there's no role of neoadjuvant chemotherapy. And then I heard Dr. Rajat Saha, how he was a little bit skeptical in deciding the role of neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So I'll be here and understand how to proceed in this case. But first of all, let's proceed again back to this case. The biopsy has turned out to be moderately differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. Now, I would like to understand from the clinicians how frequent they are ordering for an HPV in their clinical practice. So starting from Dr. Natwar Gupta, sir, if this case was coming to you, would you like to go for HPV? Dr. Prashant Vanzar, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Please
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Natwar sir, you're also audible. Please go ahead.
Yeah. In this case, the tumor is started from the oral tongue and it has spreaded to the base tongue. So it is not a pure oropharyngeal tumor. So I would not like to go for HPV examination in this case.
How about you, Dr. Prashant?
Yes, madam. So the nidus is seen in the oral cavity, oral tongue. So same as Dr. Natwar. I will go with the same. no HPV.
So what we understand basically as of now in our clinical practice, what we are doing is asking for HPV mostly in the oropharyngeal cases. But if you see there are a lot of papers like Bal et al. And I am sure even Dr. Alok Thakkar is with us today. He's one of the co-authors on this paper. There are people who have studied the HPV incidence in the oral cancers also. Of course, it's not yet a routine practice. And if I'm not wrong, I had a talk with the TMH people also. They are of course asking for HPV in all cases, but that is primarily for the data generation. But yes, of course, it is not seen as a primary oropharynx, so probably in this case. But Dr. Prashant, if it was to be done as a HPV test in the oropharyngeal case, what is the routine test you are advised for P16?
Madam, in our clinical practice, we are not implementing as of now. So
Not even in
I cannot
oropharynx?
comment.
Not even in oropharynx?
No, madam. No, madam.
Oh, that's very interesting to hear. Dr. Rohit Nair, what about it? Do you advise for HPV in the oropharyngeal cases? Dr. Rohit Nair.
Let me ask you one simple question. What is the aim of treatment for this patient? Can you cure this patient or you cannot cure this patient?
So we'll go to that question. I'm just
So
trying
the moderator, what is the aim of treatment for this patient? So
Of
this lesion is a T4 lesion, which you are showing starting from cavity going into oropharynx.
Yes.
It's a large mass involving a part of the solid as well. So what is the treatment for this patient?
So he's
This
a young,
patient only, we're not talking about the literature. Let's restrict ourselves to the case. So this case is in locally advanced tumor, what will be the aim of treatment for this?
so Dr. Rohit will be coming to the aim.
Decide on your aim of treatment.
Yes, we'll be going to the aim as well. We'll start with the poll questions also. I was just trying to understand what is the incidence of the HPV and what is the routine trend of the clinicians asking for an HPV in a daily clinical practice. So I'll come to the question of the treatment as well.
Oral cavity cancer in our country, oral cavity cancers in our country, HPV positivity is very low. So we normally don't do for that, except for the oropharyngeal. Even for oropharyngeal, the incidence is very low.
Yes, correct. And even if you see the management of the HPV with the positivity does not change. But the agenda of putting this all questions over here is to bring out that as of now, still we ask for HPV, that too in the oropharyngeal cases, not in oral cavity cases. Of course, the management still is not changing in HPV positive case.
But the staging changes in oropharyngeal if you HPV positive or HPV negative.
Absolutely. Of course, changes. However,
Prognostication is
exactly. So that was the agenda of bringing out all these relevant questions, Dr. Rohit Nair. Anyways, Dr. Deepal Bhai, before I move forward to the treatment part, would you just be quick enough to say, do you find anything correlation and the radiological backgrounds also for the HPV cases?
Yeah, HPV tumors are generally on CT scan. They show more enhancement. They are usually large exophytic tumors. They have relatively well-defined margins compared to HPV negative tumors. Their nodes usually show cystic nodal metastasis.
Correct.
While HPV negative tumors are usually iso-enhancing, they have ill-defined borders. They are more likely to demonstrate invasion to the adjacent muscles as compared to HPV negative tumors.
Very true. So I think most of what we have achieved is mostly it's an oral cavity case which we are seeing so far, and mostly it looks like HPV negative also. Now that's the first. Coming back, how do we manage this case? So these are 4 options. Before I start with my esteemed panelists, I would like the audience first to opine for this kid how they would treat this case. So Rishabh, can I have this poll question and the results, please? So would the audience try to go for chemotherapy in this option? Would they try to go for a neoadjuvant approach with new NACT, or going for a surgery approach first, or going for a palliative radiation? Great. So I see that a majority of the people believe that we start with a neoadjuvant chemotherapy approach in this case, then followed by a definitive chemo radiation, Surgery upfront, very few people believe in that. And of course, this is not a case where we are looking for palliation. So there are people zero who are opining for the palliative radiation. Great. So now I start with my panelist, starting with Dr. Natwar, sir. Sir, the audience believes that we will start with the neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So would you be interested to go for an upfront surgery in this case, or you would also agree with the team?
No, it is a stage T4B oral cancer. So I would not like to go for upfront surgery in this case. I would like to go for neoadjuvant chemotherapy and then evaluate after 2 and 3 courses of neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and then would decide for surgery or RTCT.
Dr. Prashant, do you agree for that?
Yes, madam. I will opt for neoadjuvant chemotherapy and then reassess the criteria, and then I will go for surgery. Not upfront, definitely.
So now this case comes to Dr. Aditi and Dr. Jay, where majority of the people are believing that we'll go for a neoadjuvant chemo approach. So Dr. Aditi, how would you go for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy in this case?
So if he's fit, then I would like to give him 3 cycles of 2 to 3 cycles of 3-drug regime, TPF.
Okay. We did hear something from Rajat Saha regarding a very doubtful role of the immunotherapy. Would you like to add some chemotherapy in the induction phase?
No, ma'am, not as of now.
Okay. So Dr. Prashant, this, so I think that is very well, there is no need to go for a second opinion. So probably if this patient comes, takes 3 cycles of chemotherapy and has a partial response. So Dr. Aditi, what would you go further? You would go for a definitive chemoradiation, or you would like your surgeon to intervene in this case?
I would like to discuss it in multidisciplinary camp, ma'am. If at all surgery is feasible, surgery should be the first choice and thereafter adjuvant CTI.
So coming to Dr. Rohit Nair. Are you there, sir?
Yes, madam.
So
Wherein my question is not answered. Can I have this question again repeated to all the panelists? What is the aim of treatment for this patient?
Sorry,
Can anybody take this question? Are you going to cure this patient?
This patient is locally advanced. This patient is locally advanced oral cavity cancer. So I would like to put him on a clinical trial if it is possible. So this is the this would be the my approach.
So Dr. Rohit, if I'm asking you if this patient has responded with a partial response, would you be interested to do a surgery on this patient? And will you?
Why would you give upfront CTRT to this patient? Why you want to give chemotherapy and then give CTRT or do surgery? Why don't you do upfront CTRT for this patient?
So you want to
evaluate the biology of the disease. If the biology of the disease is good, then and then only we would go for surgery.
So
otherwise, palliative radiotherapy.
Let me ask my radiation oncologist, would they be very happy to have a definitive chemo radiation in this case? So Dr. Sumit Agarwal, would you be happy to have a chemo radiation in this patient?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be happy to give chemo radiation directly in this case because I don't think so NACT will help in this case. And my volumes of treatment will not also change after NACT, and I think it will only select the radio-resistant clones in this case, and I would definitely like to go ahead with the chemo radiation in this case.
So Dr. Sumit, what would be your radiation dose, because this seems to be a very advanced case? So you think with the you would be only going with the external beam, or would you like to have brachytherapy also in this case?
No, ma'am, no brachytherapy upfrontly. I would like to go with the radical doses of GTV 70 gray and the elective nodal volumes as per the nodal involvement.
Dr. Ritu, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm there and I'm very much listening. And I just want to add one thing, that it is great to go for upfront CTRT here, but just one thing, just concerning this, that the disease is so extensive and the depth of infiltration also seems to be approximately 3 centimeter. I would personally like to go for an NACT first, then followed by radiation. No matter, it is not going to change my fields for the treatment, but it's just my own choice.
So the point is, in such a locally advanced case,
Madam, for your kind reference, after NACT, the tolerance for CTRT is very poor. You can't give CTRT. Majority of your patients are unable to complete CTRT
Sir,
if you are
I
giving NACT to
absolutely-
these patients.
Sir,
So
I absolutely agree with your statement that definitely the tolerance it comes down, and in fact because we also observe many cases like this only, but I have seen that patients do experience, they do benefit sometimes with the NACT, and it is just a clinician's choice. It is nothing like maybe you can differ from me, but if it is about me asking the same question, then I would like to give at least 2 cycles of NACT and then proceed with my CTR.
So again, I will ask you the same question. What is your aim of treatment for this patient? She's got a 3 centimeter depth of tumor infiltration inside. She's got such a large, extensive disease. Do you think you can cure her or cure this patient? So why not to improve the quality of life for this patient, whatever life he has? So that's very important for all youngsters who are treating head and neck cancers, that you must understand what is your aim of treatment for these patients. Every patient is different and case wise you have to go. You can't just take literature for all patients. See these patients, understand the biology of the disease. It's an infiltrative lesion. It is not HPV disease. It's an infiltrative lesion. So you must understand what you are doing and why you are doing it. It's very, very important. There are hordes and lots of modalities of treatment available, but you must know what to use at what time.
I differ to you completely, Dr.
So you
Rohit.
must understand, you must talk to your patient, discuss with them what is their aim, what exactly you are feeling, what exactly you are going to offer to these patients.
Dr. Rohit Nair,
so I have a
I
point here.
disagree with you. I don't think any patient would come and say, yes, I'm ready to die. And you're very correct. We'll go for palliative approach. Every patient, majority of the times, if he's going to die tomorrow, he will still come with a ray of hope to you that you try to cure me in this case. And I don't think a 45-year-old male.
It is not that we are not offering him treatment. See, you are diverting the topic. I'm telling you that you are not giving treatment to this patient. You must decide what treatment is best for that patient. You have hordes of treatment. You have to do like this, you can do like this, just do so many things, but you have to select treatment for your patient. Selection is important, what you're going to offer to your patient, depending upon case-to-case basis in these patients.
Yes, Dr. Sumit Agarwal.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, regarding the biology of the disease, we don't know some patients are neglected patients. We see that the history of the disease is not a few months, it's few years. And after a few years, we see this kind of pathology. And definitely for those patients, it's a curative setting. We can go ahead with the CTRT with the curative setting. If the progression is too early, if the progression is like in the 3 months, 6 months history, and then we can understand that it's a bad biology disease, and our approach might be a little different. Thank you.
So I think I am also a radiation oncologist, and if this case comes to me, I would definitely go for an option of neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Give 2 or 3 cycles of chemotherapy. That will really help us to know that whether the patient is responding or not. If he is a good responder, we can definitely aim for a cure in this patient, and then take a call at the time of 2 or 3 cycles of chemotherapy, seeing a response evaluation, whether to go for surgery or to go for a CTRT approach. And as far as the upfront chemoradiation is concerned, I would like to add one more point is that with this advanced disease, I am definitely sure that we are not able to achieve cure in this case, and then a surgical salvage would be much, much difficult in this case. There are many esteemed chairpersons also with me who are very senior medical oncologists. If I can have a word from them, Dr. Bhavin Bhai, if he's there, how would he go with this case?
In this case, I think I would like to give, because it is a locally advanced disease and not a curative options available. So we will give a neoadjuvant chemotherapy only. If patient is fit, then we will use the 3-drug combination and we evaluate for response, and as per tolerance, we give 2 to 3 cycles and then we evaluate for response. And if patient has very good response, then we can consider for local treatment. Now, if surgeon is comfortable for surgery, we'll definitely go for surgery. If surgeon still feels that the optimal margin cannot be possible, in that case, the CTRT should be used.
So I think with hearing from probably all the panelists and the chairpersons, we conclude to this case that though looking at advanced case, is definitely not case for palliation. We definitely go for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy approach. Have a reassessment after 2 or 3 cycles. If he is a good responder, we can definitely think of achieving a good local regional control, either in form of surgery or a concurrent chemoradiation. And unfortunately, if according to the books, he again goes into the case of a bad responder or a non-responder or a poor responder, then probably we can really throw him into the basket of palliation, but not on day one, as a few of my friends were telling.
Can I ask a
So,
question?
I'll add.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
If I am allowed for one question.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Who is this?
I'm Dr. Pawan.
Yes, Dr. Pawan.
And this is with reference to the presentation that we had with Dr. Alok and Dr. Nirav. My question here is, if we have a good responder, if we do have a good responder, in one of the slides, Dr. Nirav had said that can we compromise or can we decrease the margin of our resection after the neoadjuvant therapy? So this question is basically means for Dr. Nirav and Dr. Alok, just to guide us, what would be the margin of resection after neoadjuvant therapy? And this is where probably Dr. Rohit is also pointing out. And if that can be answered, then we will be able to, that will give us a good guidance how far this neoadjuvant therapies can be helpful to the surgeons.
Hi, everybody. Alok Thakkar here.
Yes, Alok, sir.
So, I mean, some questions have no clear answers, and that is why I guess there has been so much discussion. But the situation, as I also see here, is that this is very advanced disease, wherein we have a patient who's otherwise young and fit, and 45-year-old, you presume his performance status 0 or 1. And though you do realize that aggressive treatment may take you no further, but here's a patient who can withstand aggressive treatment. And so I too would seriously consider the NSCT option if you could take it forward. But it's a question of philosophy, and I would not say that the other option is certainly not certainly the wrong option. The upfront surgery option doesn't seem on because of the reason that it's going to the vallecula. Will the margin of resection be less? So ideally, the margin of resection should not be less after induction chemotherapy. But in this particular situation, wherein you initially had an unresectable tumor and subsequently the whole idea is to shrink the tumor and maybe make it resectable, yes, sometimes margins of resection do become less. So though the ideal scenario would be to not reduce the margin of resection at all pre and post chemotherapy. And we all know that post chemotherapy, it is very unwise to expect tumors to shrink in a circumferential fashion and only be left at the nidus at the center. But nevertheless, one can only do what is feasible. And in this situation, you would probably end up reducing your margin of resection. It would not be ideal, but that would be the only practical and feasible thing to do.
Dr. Nirav, can we have some remarks from your side?
So,
Dr. Nirav Trivedi.
Yeah, so basically, I want to ask a fundamental question. Why this patient is non-resectable? I can understand that resection can lead to morbidity. That's a different thing. But when you say it is non-resectable, it means that from surgery, you cannot do a R0 resection. Now, for many years, we have been doing total glossectomy with laryngectomy for advanced tongue tumors going into supralarynx. So I won't say it is non-resectable. So that term is not right for this patient. I completely agree. Second thing, I would never judge vallecular infiltration only on scans. It needs a proper evaluation under general anesthesia, because most of the time when the scan says vallecular infiltration, when you do a DL scopy, proper scopy and palpate, you still get 2-3 millimeter margin in vallecula. It's just base tongue. Because of superimposition, you might not get vallecula there. So if vallecula is involved after DL scopy and biopsy, I agree that resecting tongue with vallecula, half of the hyoid you can cut and take the lateral pharyngeal wall is very feasible, but it will add morbidity in terms of aspiration. Okay, so I think at this point of time, we all know it's oral cancer. The only way to cure is by doing a proper surgery with R0 margin. Everything else, if you don't include surgery in your treatment algorithm, patient is not going to get cured. So I will have a very frank and open discussion with the patient saying that These are your options. One option is do give NaCT NC if vallecular margin reduces and you can cut little less and preserve vallecula. That's number one chance for cure. If not, we can do surgery upfront, but you will have lot of aspiration. You have to undergo very intense swallowing rehab. I'll have to do hyoid hitch post my reconstruction, all these things, but I will leave the decision to the patient. Even if completely uneducated or illiterate, if we can explain them in simple words, patient do make very informed decisions. And you just open up all your ideas and say, if you want to try for cure, you opt one of these approaches. If you don't want cure and you think that you don't want any morbidity, then it's up to you, and we can try chemotherapy, chemoradiotherapy, whatever best tumor board decides you can try. But it's easily resectable. Please don't say this is non-resectable. It's easily resectable.
We can put it in a group as an inoperable tumor because of morbidity.
See, that's what I am saying. See, the concept of non-resectability and increased morbidity is very, very different. So don't say it is not.
Oral cavity cancer involving lateral pharyngeal wall is considered as a T4B. So in T4B also you would like to go for a upfront surgery?
Sir, again I will tell you, so as a surgeon I am a mechanic, and when I see can I resect this with R0, everything that I can resect with R0 is operable for me, but I also look at the morbidity that it brings, and I have a very open discussion with the patient saying that if you want cure, this is what is feasible, but this will lead to these kind of post-op effects. If patient agrees to that, I offer treatment. If patient says, no, this is very much morbid for me and I don't want it, I discuss in tumor board and then we dissect the best alternative approach. But one thing is very clear, that unless you do surgery for oral cavity tumors, you cannot cure them as of now.
So I think we'll not have much more comments on this case because we have another two more interesting and more controversial cases than this. But I think we take a concluding remarks from this case that in a case of such a case of advanced case where probably even the surgeon said that he would mechanically operate it, but then the question of the quality would be a little bit miserable. So that's why we'll try to give a neoadjuvant chemotherapy, try to see the response of the patient. If he is a good responder, then we'll definitely think of cure and go for a local surgery or a chemoradiation. And if he is not responded, then definitely we'll think of palliation in this case. A last question from a radiation oncologist before I move on to the second case. The way the surgeon says that probably the resectability margin would not change. I would like to hear from you and make the audience very clear. If this patient is a good responder and you decide to go for a definitive chemoradiation, does your radiation portals change? Do you really contour only the volume which is there post chemotherapy, or you take into charge the volumes which were there on day one? Questions to both Dr. Sumit first and then Dr. Ritu.
Ma'am, the portals in the my volumes will probably not change because of the NaCT, because of the shrinkage of the tumor, until unless there's a skin infiltration and it's bulging on the skin kind of a scenario, or the nodal big nodes which are extending, away. So my volumes will remain the same.
Dr. Ritu, you would like to add something, or you're also in
I would also completely agree with sir that yes, my portals are certainly not going to change with that. I will consider the pre-chemo GTV only. I will consider that volume and then giving the margins to that.
So I think we all principally agree that in order to do the best for the patient, we start with the neoadjuvant and then take a call after 2 or 3 cycles. Now going to the second case, he's a 36-year-old male presenting with ulcer on the left-sided tongue since 1 year. He has a history of tobacco chewing since 20 years, probably starting from his teenage. These are the pictures. Can I request Dr. Deepal Bhai to please read out the images for us?
Yeah, these are axial and coronal fat suppressed retubated images. They show large heterogeneously hyperintense lesion involving entire left half of the oral tongue. The lesion involves genioglossus and hyoglossus muscles. Inferiorly, it extends into sublingual space. The lesion also crosses the midline.
I think it would be difficult for you to comment on the nodal part with these images. I'm sorry for that.
See, on the coronal images, nodes are not visualized. The axial images also, in these images, it's difficult to see.
Yes. So I start with my surgeons again, Dr. Narwat sir. Would you like to, are you happy with this imaging, or you would like to order a PET CT or then take a call for the treatment?
See, PET CT is indicated in the stage. Usually, I usually advise PET CT if the nodal disease is N2, N3, or if maybe T4, N2, N3 disease, in which I would advise PET CT. Otherwise, I would not advise PET CT. I just do a chase CT.
What is your inference, Dr. Rohit Nair? Would you like to go for a PET CT, or you're happy with this MRI?
Definitely with the PET CT.
So these are the PET CT report, which says it's a big lesion, 5 centimeter lesion, all involving almost the entire 2/3 of the tongue, extending to the left side of the floor of mouth, left GG and HG muscle. There is no hyoidation, there is no base tongue, no follicular involvement. And then there are probably bilateral nodes. The biopsy turns out to be squamous cell carcinoma model differentiated. So Dr. Rohit Nair, would you like to operate, or still it is a case of palliation for you?
No, we'll operate it upfront.
Okay. So I take an opinion of the audience first, then we see what the panelists have to say. So there are 4 options for this case. Again, going for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy, or second to go for a surgery, or a definitive chemoradiation, or a case for palliative radiotherapy. So I think, is this the poll done, Rishabh? No, okay. So there are 71% of the people who believe that surgery can be opted for this patient. 21% would like to go for a neoadjuvant chemo approach. Hardly 4% for definitive chemoradiation and 4% for palliative radiation. Okay. So what about the esteemed panelists with me today? Dr. Prashant, how would you like to go for this case?
Surgery, madam, in a form of subtotal glossectomy with compartmental dissection and bilateral neck to be addressed.
Any of my radiation colleagues would like to disagree, or you're okay with them?
I'm okay with the surgery.
Dr. Jayabhai, would you agree for this, or you would like to go for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy approach?
I would definitely go for surgery, madam.
Now, the problem in this patient is that his ejection fraction is very low, 25%. Okay. And I think with this, probably you would not like to go for a surgery. Then, Dr. Jayabhai, are you comfortable in giving chemotherapy with this ejection fraction being 25%?
We can give chemotherapy, but not the TPF as we usually using, because the taxanes, especially the docetaxel, that is associated with fluid retention as well as cardiac arrhythmias, and also the 5-FU also causing coronary vasospasm. So in this case, we cannot use 5-FU or taxane-based chemotherapy, and then also we cannot use cisplatin, because cisplatin can also cause episodes of angina or associated with MI. And the cisplatin is given along with a high amount of fluid volume. So we cannot give high fluid with 25% ejection fraction. So we should go with carboplatin and somewhat methotrexate based chemotherapy.
Aditi, would you agree for that?
Yeah,
or you have some better option?
I might give paclitaxel with carboplatin, ma'am.
Okay. How about using immunotherapy in this case?
No, ma'am. For this indication, if we are intending for neoadjuvant, I don't feel the immunotherapy evidence is sufficient for us to try.
So this patient probably received 2 cycles of MTX and carboplatin. So how would you now take it further from here, Dr. Jayabhai? He has already received 2 cycles of MTX and carboplatin.
Yes, I would do the imaging after 2 cycles of chemotherapy.
So probably you had a MRI and a PET on day 1. Would you like to go for a PET or a MR or CT? What would be your response evaluation imaging this time?
I would do MRI sufficient.
Can I interfere in between, madam?
Yes, please go ahead.
Again, my question is, what is your aim of treatment for this patient? He's got an ejection fraction of 25%. He is medically unfit for surgery, correct? Am I right or wrong?
Yes, definitely is not medical. Or if you are
So,
surgeon, you would. Yes.
So he is unfit for surgery. He is an operable, resectable patient. So what is your aim of treatment now? With this chemotherapy, can you cure him? Are you giving a palliative chemo? Are you giving a neoadjuvant chemo? What treatment you are offering this patient? What is your aim of treatment? Please be very specific what exactly you want to achieve in this patient. It is not that I want to give this thing, but why you want to give this?
Yes, Dr. J. What is your answer to this? Why
We have
did you
Dr.
receive the
Vipin
chemotherapy?
Bhatwal. Dr. Vipin Bhatwal is there in the as a panelist, who is a reconstruction surgeon, and Dr. M. Patnaik, Manisha Patnaik, oncosurgeon. Maybe we can have some questions, their opinion also on this.
Yeah, it's open to all panelists. It's open to everyone who was dealing with these patients. What is the aim of treatment for a medically inoperable patient?
So, Dr. JB, would you like to take this question?
So we can take a consent of anesthetist if he agrees and patient agrees to take a risk, then we would go for surgery upfront.
No, she said it is a medically
medically.
25% ejection fraction is not a
surgery.
If there is an emergency, patient has to go for surgery. If there is an emergency, patient has to go for surgery, whatever the ejection fraction is. And 25% ejection fraction also we can do a surgery.
Natubhai, I can appreciate your things, but
now let me put this question this way. There's somehow even the anesthetists have refrained that they will be giving fitness for this patient. So he's definitely not going to be taken for surgery at the first upfront way. But definitely we have given chemotherapy. So if he is responding this time.
So what chemotherapy and what is your aim of giving chemotherapy for this patient? Are you giving a palliative chemotherapy? You are giving a neoadjuvant chemotherapy? What chemotherapy you are offering?
Yes, Dr.
What is your aim of treatment now?
So basically, it's an induction
chemotherapy. Unoperable patient, inoperable patient. Okay.
He was quite.
So what are you offering this patient?
He was quite much operable, but because of this medical problem, probably we could not operate him on day one. That's why we went for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy approach. And I think Dr. JB.
Again, it's not neoadjuvant. Again, please. Neoadjuvant for what? What is the definitive treatment you're going to offer this patient?
Why not definitive CTRT to start
definitive
with?
CTRT is a treatment.
Hello? And if not chemo,
yes,
then maybe.
I'm Dr. Manisha.
Doctor?
Dr. Manisha.
Yes, Dr. Manisha, please go ahead.
Can I just put in my word?
Yes, ma'am, please go ahead.
This patient, I agree completely with Dr. Rohit when he asks what is the goal of our treatment in this kind of patient. As my previous speaker said, as the previous person was asking said, ejection fraction of 25% is not actually a contraindication for surgery. We have operated even worse and we have operated and got them all right. So it's probably not a contraindication for surgery. But if you put me on a premise that the
Hello.
I think, madam, we lost you. Hello.
अपना ओपिनियन तो दो.
सर आपको मैसेज कर दिया मैंने.
मैं तो देख रहा हूँ.
So what I want, patient has refused for surgery, the anesthetist is refused for surgery, the treatment goal changes. The treatment goal comes to palliative. And in that scenario, I'll probably not offer a neoadjuvant chemotherapy. I would go on to have a palliative radiation and then follow up with a metronomic chemotherapy with methotrexate.
So, madam, your points are well taken, but I think my radiation colleagues would come here in and rejection fraction with 25%. I don't think it's any contraindication for radiation, curative radiation. The aim of giving this chemotherapy will definitely again give us a way that whether he is responding, and we will be going for a curative approach in this case. Dr. Ritu, would you like to add something to me?
Ejection fraction being 25%. Initially, I thought that it is. I thought that surgery can easily be done. But now it's like if even if 25% is not a contraindication and we have already given chemotherapy, then the option of CTRT is there. Otherwise, I would have gone for a with ejection fraction if possible, surgery done, then good enough. If not, then why not upfront CTRT?
So with this patient who has a disease of around 5 centimeter with a chemoradiation, so what chemotherapy would you give, Dr. Aditi, if we are going for an upfront chemoradiation in this case?
Then I will give maybe carboplatin, weekly carboplatin.
So with a 5
weekly
centimeter,
cetuximab, I will discuss with the patient.
5 centimeter oral tongue lesion, chemoradiation with carboplatin. Dr. Ritu, are you sure enough that you will be able to cure this patient with chemotherapy and radiation alone?
I know cure is not possible with this with CTRT, but I just doubt that with that rejection fraction of 25%, how much the patient will be able to tolerate the neoadjuvant also. That's why I said.
Patient will need brachytherapy also. Patient is having a oral tongue cancer also. So in brachytherapy also you need anesthesia.
So what's the harm of going for an MTX carboplatin approach in an upfront to decide whether he's a responding patient or not? Dr. Bhavin Bhai.
Even if it is responding, what are you going to do with this patient? Even if it is a responding patient, what are you going to do with this patient? What is your aim of treatment? Why you want to give chemotherapy upfront? Why you want to give chemotherapy? If you tell me, is this neoadjuvant for what?
Dr. Rohit sir, please tell me, in a first patient who was a young patient who had no comorbidities, you did not want to give chemotherapy there. You don't want to give a chemotherapy for LV of 25%. So where do the people, Aditi and Dr. JB, would give their chemotherapy? They will.
What is the role of chemotherapy in head and neck cancer? You tell me.
Why would I say
What is the role of chemotherapy?
Dr. Rajas,
when in neoadjuvant, you are saying it doesn't improve survival of your patient. It doesn't improve survival of your patient. So what is the role? You must understand the purpose of the treatment should be very clear what they are offering to this patient. This patient is not going to be operated, is medically unfit for surgery. So your line of treatment changes straight away. Either you give a CTRT for this patient. If you cannot give chemo, you can give cetuximab as well to this patient. Whatever control you have, it will have a durable control for a longer period of time. Okay, that second line is, if you are not giving CTRT, patient is unfit for CTRT, put him on metronomic therapy. Let him go home and have enjoy.
Would you be able to give a cetuximab with ejection fraction of 25%?
Aim of treatment.
Dr. Aditi, would
Yes,
you be
that
able
the medical
to
oncologist has
give
to say.
25%?
Yes, ma'am.
So cetuximab is not a problem for you?
No, ma'am.
So that's a good point you raised, that we can have a targeted therapy approach on the upfront setting, definitive chemoradiation. So then could be probably radiation plus chemotherapy plus a targeted therapy in upfront setting.
The probable benefit of neoadjuvant chemotherapy could be, ma'am, that if the patient responds, then we can still give him a definitive CTRT or cetuximab RT. And if he does not respond, then we will change over to oral metronomic chemotherapy with palliative RT for whatever palliation of the symptoms can be achieved.
So I think still my medical colleague wants to say she wants to try it with a neoadjuvant chemotherapy approach. Dr. Alok sir, are you there with us?
Yes, sorry, I am. Yeah.
Yes, sir. How would you be taking this case in your APD?
Yeah, I mean, I quite understand the point of view that if surgery is not going to be a subsequent final line of treatment, then it is unlikely that you'll end up curing this patient. Whether you want to be aggressive and treat it with an attempt of cure with the full course of chemoradiation, or whether you want to do less is something you would take it with your patient. But without surgery, it's unlikely that you would have cured your patient.
Dr. Aditi was trying to say that with a neoadjuvant chemotherapy, if he responds well, then in a definitive chemoradiation at that time, probably we can add cetuximab. That was a good option we thought of.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think out of the box. Yes.
This patient cannot.
Dr. Pooja, if I can make a comment here.
What drugs you are offering this patient?
Yes, Dr. Meenu, please go ahead.
Dr. Pooja, in such a case where we know that the patient is unresectable, is medically inoperable, but the disease, because of the ejection fraction being 25%, I definitely agree in the sense that CTRT will be a good option. Rather, immuno plus RT should be a good option. Immuno, what I'm saying, rather like Erbitux, cetuximab. So cetuximab, we have the study, we have phase 3 data where cetuximab is probably non-inferior than platinum. And here, if it is a choice between carboplatin and cetuximab is not contraindicated with a left ventricular ejection fraction of 25%, we can easily deliver cetuximab along with RT. And I think that should be the best approach rather than giving upfront NSCT, because the NSCT which we are trying to give is not the proper NSCT. The NSCT which has also been tried in various studies is a 3-drug and a 2-drug regimen, which we will not be able to give in this patient.
So I think this point is well taken. Probably this is really that controversial case where everybody would definitely have their opinion and which would not match with any of the TBD. And I think this is a particular case which should definitely come to an TBD and then decide the further management. So I think we have discussed enough with this. I straightforward go to the last case because we are running really short of time.
Can I just have one question to the oncosurgeon, Dr. Rohit, Dr. Pawan, and Dr. Neera? I am Dr. Vipin here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So as Dr. Neera has initially said, so definitive treatment is surgery only. And once open discussion with the patient and attendant, and they decide to go for a surgery despite taking all the risks, they just want cure. So Dr. Rohit and Dr. Pawan, would you still deny the surgery, or would you refer the patient elsewhere, or you will take up surgery? First question. And second, if surgery, what is the expected defect, and what form of reconstruction should be done? Dr. Rohit and Dr. Pawan.
The patient should be, if the patient is fit enough to come to operation theater, if it has been cleared by anesthetist and your physician, you definitely go for surgery with
Dr. Rohit,
with the radium
we'll stick to this
or
case.
an ELT flap.
He is a high risk patient. He is ready to take all risks, and he wants cure. So all the surgeons are here. So then are we proceeding with surgery if he is ready to take risk, and of course is a high risk patient, he wants cure? Are we for surgery? Yes, or should we refer the patient, or should we deny? I mean, it's a individual surgeon's choice
again,
also.
See that line of followed by CTRT or RT, depending upon the final pathology report. This was the initial plan of treatment, unless when the medically fitness question came in later on.
Yeah.
So if the patient is fit for surgery, and if he can withstand long surgery, post-total colectomy with the reconstruction is the option.
Yeah.
If for a patient with a borderline medical fitness, go for a quick replacement with a reconstruction as well, which takes lesser time.
Yeah.
Easily out of
Okay.
For these patients.
I fully agree. I think
these
other
are the
surgeons
two
will also
options
agree.
for them, those who are operable.
Yeah. So my only one question to all the surgeons, because primarily my role as a reconstructive surgeon comes later once it is decided for surgery, and mainly it's the oncosurgeon or head and neck surgeon who decides with the patient. And will you ever consider denial surgery despite patient insisting? Will you or not? Because whatever risk patient has, whatever is you explain before surgery, no patient, however comorbidities or how many comorbid the patient is, it's very difficult once complications occur that they accept things, especially in a private setup when patient has paid. So do you ever deny, no, I'll not operate? Have you done that?
Yes, Dr. Vipin, we have done that.
Yeah.
Definitely, that is an option, and that we have to take. In this particular case, this which with a ejection fraction of 25%, which is operable but medically unfit for the present, I will definitely in a multi-discipline setting, like where we have the cardiologist and everyone available with us, maybe we will have a joint meeting whether this patient still can be taken up or not, and with the risk explanation. If the patient is still ready, then we can go ahead and do the surgery, and where we know that yes, we have got a good margin and we have got a good chance of cure for this patient. Otherwise, we have to explain in a multidiscipline setting with the cardiologist and with the anesthetist and everyone, and of course you also being part of it, because it's just not the resection part. It also includes our surgical aspect, also includes the reconstruction part, because that is also going to take another 3 to 4 hours. So all this aspect has to be discussed with all the team sitting with the patients and the relatives to discuss each and every aspect. In the first case which was discussed, I would probably refuse any type of surgery for this patient, because compromising with the margin is not the answer. It will be only palliative surgery if it is required. It will with the 2 centimeter or 2 millimeter at the vallecula or doing all this I will not agree to that. I will not go in for surgery at all in the first case, but of course the second case has to be discussed in details. Thank you so much. I think we are running.
Can I take a third case, or shall I give it to the next speaker, because I think it's already 6:15.
Yeah, 6:11.
Yeah,
so, yeah. Please. Yeah.
So we'll stop. I'll stop here.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for a nice interaction.
Okay.
Over to Dr. Vikram, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pooja. It's always a controversy, and that's the challenge in managing the loco-regionally advanced cancer. And as we discuss always in our multidisciplinary team, that was a reflection in your panel also, that there are always difference of opinion, but I think all in the interest of patient, I guess so. And as the panel rightly pointed out, it is important to take the intent of the treatment into consideration, what we are trying to do, and keep the patient's wishes and the quality of life and the oncological outcome as the objectives. So thank you so much to our moderator as well as to all panelists. And
I just wanted to bring forth this one particular device. This is for the mouth opening. These are very common problems that we face after the surgery. The limitation of the mouth opening, which Dr. Pranav also elucidated to, that there will be trismus and other aspects. So this is a particular device which has been specifically introduced by ICANCare, and this is TrisCare. This is a TrisCare for the trismus relieving device, and it helps in mechanically opening the mouth and stretching the mouth so that the post-operative trismus can be taken care. And I have been using this immediately pre-operatively as well as post-operatively for the patient. It has given quite good results. So this was something that I wanted to add a little bit, and I took a little privilege being from ICANCare. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We would like to thank all the speakers, our moderator and the panelists for a very exciting session today. I truly enjoyed. I hope all our participants also enjoyed the presentation. And I think it's important to understand that there are always going to be some amount of controversies, but they are always in the best interest of the patients. And it is always to welcome different point of view, as long as they are evidence-based. So with those remarks, I would hand it over to Dr. Pawan for the concluding remarks for the session.
Thank you so much, sir. It has been a wonderful session today, and some very important topics and expert advices were given today, and I'm sure a lot of people, almost everyone who is here, would have benefited from it. And we look forward for additional program or the rehabilitation that Dr. Narayana has today said something about. We will be looking forward to have more on that in our next session. So, and definitely I also look forward that every one of us who are here, I'm just putting the a Facebook link. It is a ICANCare Facebook page and it's a community page. I would suggest that if all of you who are here right now, we have got 72 participants still here on. So if you can just click on the Facebook page and join the community page, it will be a regular interaction that we can have. And at iCanCare, we are looking at providing tobacco cessation as one of the most important factor, which is a part of all our head and neck surgeons. So iCanCare has made evidence-based methodologies, and we are into training of the tobacco cessation program. So I would, to encourage people, what we have done this year, we have given a scholarship of 100 students, and that is for training. And I look forward that all of us who are the seniors here, they would start looking at this aspect of tobacco cessation and get connected with us, so that we can train your students, train your people, train your faculty in tobacco cessation, which is a very complex disease and needs a proper intervention. So we try to make a lot of intervention specialists. So this would be a very good opportunity that we have provided to 100 scholarships for all the head and neck surgeons who would be interested to practice it, not just for the sake of it, but who would be interested to practice it later. So thank you so much, and it has been a wonderful time. And I really, it was a eye-opener and a lot of things, a lot of discussions, and I look forward for more sessions in the next Sunday. So for everyone, please, if you have already joined, if you have not joined, again, I'm just putting this link. Please do join the iCanCare page so that we can be connected. Thank you so much. Have a great day. So it's already, we are 53 minutes late, but it was so interesting that we continue to go with it. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. Thank you, Dr. Vikram. And thank you, Dr. Pranav. Thank you, Dr. Deepal. Everyone, thank you so much for joining today, and we'll see you all again next week. And till then, have a great week ahead. Thank you so much.
Girja ma'am, you want to say something? Girja ma'am, Girja Sampath ma'am.
It was a wonderful session. Every session is, we are learning more and more.
Yeah, thank you, man. Great. Let's call it a day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.